welcome to the family with
Co-host Catherine Bryant.
Didn't know Kristen was going first. Michael Bryant.
Andy Brant Bernard.
Kristen Burt.
and the psychotic dog in the background just got a bath, so he is losing his mind.
Yes, I have learned my lesson to never bathe the dog before the podcast.
Oh my God, is he losing it?
Lesson learned.
He's so happy, like the happiest animal on earth or being on earth right now. But
dogs do.
He wouldn't stop licking my legs. I made the mistake of wearing short pants on the day he got a bath, so he will not stop licking my legs. So Catherine put a barrier up, and now he's having a fit over the barrier.
Yeah, it's Jude's world, and we just live in it.
Yeah, you got that right.
That's how it is.
Unbelievable is all I have to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristen Burt Entertainment News brought to you by North American Banking Company. Go to nabankco.com to learn more. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Did you hear him growling in the background?
I did.
Oh, my God.
Arg,
Arg,
arg.
arg.
He's like a little pirate, a little puppy pirate.
Yeah, he is a pirate. It's true. So what's the latest, Kristen Burt?
Oh, we have not had a lot of good news in the
We've
last
got
24
latest,
hours. First, yesterday after we got off air, we lost Michelle Trachtenberg, which for a lot of millennials, they grew up with her. She was Harriet the Spy. She was in The Adventures of Pete and Pete. She went on to other, TV shows that everybody, knew her for. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then, of course, you have her on Gossip Girl, which was also a real pop culture moment for the early aughts. It looks like, and she wasn't very public with her health issues, but there were rumors last year, and she started pushing back as people started commenting on her appearance because she was very thin. And if you notice now and go back and look at her, she sometimes had a yellow cast to her eyes.
Okay, so some liver
which would explain the liver transplant. And it looks like she had complications from the liver transplant. I don't know whether it was her body rejecting it or something different. Her family has not released any of that news. She was very private about it, but she was only 39.
That's terrible.
It's terrible. And, everyone was kind of wondering whether she was going to be participating in the Buffy the Vampire reboot, which is coming back to TV, led by Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sarah Michelle Gellar was still good friends with Michelle Trachtenberg, and she was also friends with Shannon Doherty, who passed away last fall. So, there's a lot in the Hollywood community that have remained close over the years and just a lot of losses at young ages.
Yeah, really young.
But what about the suspicious one, the 95-year-old married to the 64-year-old, and they're both dead, and so is their dog?
Their dog.
And the dog, yeah.
Do you want this is my hypothetical guess on what happened? Carbon monoxide poisoning. Undetected in the home.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Because they're saying
the dog died, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, the fact that the dog died, the fact that the cops are saying there is no foul play suspected, that right away to me says what was going on in the home. It doesn't sound like it was a murder-suicide by any means. So
yeah, if the dog was still alive, I would suspect maybe, or some sort of suicide pact or something. Mm-hmm. But the fact that the dog is dead, it's pretty uncommon to include the dog in a suicide pact.
Yeah.
So
100%. And people had lovely things to say about both Gene and his wife. And I just feel like, they were allowed to really live their lives in Santa Fe without being, part of the gossip or part of the paparazzi or anything else. So I do think that this was just a real tragic accident.
No question. It's really kind of personal because he used to come on my show all the time, Gene Hackman, because he wrote how many books after he backed off on acting a bit?
Tons. He backed off on acting, late 90s, early aughts, and then he became a very prolific writer. And he said his wife, Betsy, was a huge supporter of his and really encouraged him to write.
But he's such a nice man. He used to come on and we'd talk about his books or talk about his movies or whatever. Just nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Gene Hackman was a very nice man.
Well, and that's the sad thing. I mean, he obviously lived a very long life at 95, and you think maybe he had more life to live. Maybe he was in the middle of writing a book, and if it was a tragic accident, it's terrible. His wife was only in her 60s, so that's young.
That's a good reminder to make sure your smoke detectors
absolutely.
It really is.
Working, because
carbon
that's
monoxide is actually a very, very rare cause of death in America these days.
I suppose, yeah.
It's about 1 in a million.
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah, no, there's only a couple hundred carbon monoxide deaths in the United States every year. And a lot of them are people running generators indoors and that sort of thing. So this sort of thing, if their furnace started leaking carbon monoxide and they didn't detect it, extreme freak accident.
Yeah, especially in Santa Fe where their house isn't really going to be buttoned up and tight.
Well, Charlie is in Albuquerque, which is in the general vicinity, and he says that apparently wood-burning fireplaces are pretty common there.
Yep.
And so if they hadn't opened the flue or the flue was blocked, something like that. I mean, if you don't open the flue and you start a wood fire and you walk away, you come back in, I mean, there can be enough carbon monoxide in there to just knock you out. No time.
Oh, wow.
So,
and we'll just say again that this is our speculation. We don't have any evidence yet, just so everyone knows. This is just our guess on what possibly happened.
Actually, my guess is aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
We don't have aliens in New Mexico.
They shot them with their laser beams, and they died.
The biggest problem that I have is that since Catherine's seen the story, she now claims to be 41 years old.
What?
Because his wife was 34 years younger than he was? 32 years younger?
Yeah, it's
so
pretty
Catherine's
big gap.
41 now. We've got to get that straightened out.
Yeah, they met when he was still married to his first wife, but he did like a big proclamation that he was like, I was already estranged from my wife. There was nothing. Yeah, there was no overlap. You know, he made a very big deal about that.
Wasn't she a musician or something?
Concert pianist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that was such a tough deal. I remember the great movie he was in, Scarecrow, with Al Pacino?
No.
You don't remember that movie? Oh, God, it was one of the best movies I've ever seen. But at the end of the movie, I won't say who it is, but there's somebody dead. And the other guy starts talking to the dead, because they're both street people. They're both big-time alcoholics, and they're what used to be called bums, I guess, street bums. But was so great about that, I went to see the movie in downtown Minneapolis at I think it was the State Theater. I don't remember exactly which theater it was, but there was a booze hound that was asleep in the back row. He was this drunk just showed up. What they do is when somebody went out the side door, they just sneak in the side door and then fall asleep in the theater because it was so dark in there, nobody even knew they were there. Problem with this is, I think it was Gene Hackman that was dead, and Al Pacino was talking to this character, not realizing he was dead. And all of a sudden, the booze hound wakes up in the back row and goes, "You dumb son of a bitch, he's dead, you dumbass." And he just wouldn't stop screaming at the screen. It's like, oh my God. Going to see a movie downtown Minneapolis, that's what you got back in the day, I'll tell you.
I love it.
But yeah, that really breaks my heart to Gene. I mean, he's 95 years old, so he lived a long, wonderful life and had a wife that loved him. And that dog
and
is
well,
never
that
again.
Maybe that is Jude mourning the puppy that lost.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's mourning the puppy. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, and so, I mean, what a legacy for Gene Hackman too. I mean, he was someone Superman. And going back to what I consider like the classic Superman with Christopher Reeve. So yeah.
Christopher Reeve, boy, I haven't heard. Now he died young. He got shot to death, did he not?
No, Christopher Reeve was paralyzed
off
a horse and in an equestrian accident. That did not kill him though, but it was the years of just battling his health after the accident.
His documentary is really cool though.
Oh, Superman. It's Super/Man is the title. It is excellent. And his kids are so great. It's so wonderful to see how they have evolved. He kept their parents' legacy alive because obviously his wife Dana also passed away from lung cancer about 18 months, I think, after Christopher passed away, leaving Will, who was their son, together. I think he was only about 12. He was an orphan.
Oh, God. So who played Superman on TV?
On Smallville or which one?
No, the one way back.
George.
You're talking about
George somebody. You're right.
George Reeve.
George Reeve.
Oh, so it's Steve Reeves, because George Reeves was shot to death.
Was he?
You can look it up, Andy, would you please? George Reeves.
How could he be shot to death if he was Superman?
No, exactly.
I think he had like mysterious circumstances of like a hotel room.
That's like gunshot at 45. Yes.
Yep. There you go.
Officially suicide, but of course there's speculation.
It's what they always call the Superman curse. It's like certain shows or certain roles are always apparently cursed.
Yeah.
But the last couple have been are okay. I mean, the latest Superman are what? Carville and who's the other one that's been Superman lately?
I'm like, I so don't pay attention now too.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Who plays Superman? Let's see here. There's a whole lot of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Henry
really?
Cavill was my.
Nicolas Cage was even
Oh,
Superman.
that's right,
once.
Cage.
What?
He was?
In
I
Teen
didn't know
Titans
that.
Go.
Yep.
Not know that.
So
Yeah,
everyone's
Henry-
been Superman.
Yeah.
Henry Cavill was the one. But he fell off the planet for a while after playing the role and then finally kind of came back.
Yeah, he was Geralt, I think, right? Yeah, in The Witcher. That was his most recent big thing. But yeah, he was Man
George
of Steel.
Reeves, Christopher Reeve. There's
Yeah.
like that one slight
they're not
difference. George
related?
Reeves, Christopher
Yeah.
Reeve.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
I thought it
exactly
was
right.
a father-son Superman duo.
No,
Cool,
but highly, highly recommend the Superman documentary. If you have not watched it, that is, it seems sad, but it's really uplifting. And the work that Christopher Reeve did has benefited people with traumatic brain injuries and paralysis for decades now. It's amazing how he was able to propel the research with fundraising.
I believe I was 5, maybe 6 years old when I actually looked up what able to leap tall buildings in a single bound meant. Because I had no idea. It's like, what the hell does that even mean?
So, what'd you use to look it up?
What's that?
You just went on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I can't go on Wikipedia back in those days. No, I looked up the word single bound, and that meant a jump. So yeah, he leaped tall buildings in a single bound. He could jump over tall buildings. That's
Yeah, he originally could not fly.
yeah, right, exactly.
He could jump very high, and people eventually thought he was flying, so they were like, you know what? Sure, he can fly.
He had springs.
Book,
Yeah, no, he couldn't fly
I
originally.
thought the first cover had him flying.
The first cover has him holding that car up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
It's like the
Or
only.
is it the Mandela effect? We just believe now that he could always fly.
Right.
I think. Well, I mean, he's been flying for God. It's been like 60 years at this point. So I mean,
Hey, he really hasn't jumped over a building in a long time.
why jump when you
He
can
just
fly?
flies. And
Yeah,
Superman
absolutely.
documentary, I just looked it up. It's on Max. So if you
Max,
have a
yep.
subscription, you can watch it on Max. I saw it in the theater one afternoon. Just went by myself. It was great.
I saw him on the plane.
It is a tough story though, losing Gene Hackman, because like I said, I talked to him a million times on the KQ Morning Show. Just a really, really nice guy, forthcoming. He held nothing back in interviews. Just a really, really great guy. So it's very, very sad.
I don't know
It
if
is,
I've ever
between-
seen anything he's in.
What?
You've never seen a Gene Hackman film?
I don't know that I
No,
have.
see
he hasn't been
Hoosiers?
in anything in a while. So.
Hoosiers.
Oh
Doesn't
man,
surprise me.
he's never seen Hoosiers.
No.
Get
No, I
Shorty. I mean, he's had a really Mississippi Burning, Unforgiven, The French
Unforgiven.
Connection,
Yeah. Oh God.
Chinatown.
Yes.
The
Nothing.
Quick and the Dead. You have some movie
I'm going
watching to
through
do,
his.
Andy.
I'm going through his filmography. He's been in quite a few movies.
You
This
didn't
Gene Hackman guy, he must be an upcoming star.
Yeah.
You got some movie watching to do.
No, I have not seen a sing. Oh wait, Ants.
And of course,
Saw that.
That was a voice.
You're
it's Ant.
you're well covered with that one, were
Of
you?
course, it was Ants.
Well, and I will say with the loss of Michelle and the loss of Gene, if you go with the Hollywood rule of three, it makes me a little wary about is someone else coming.
Yeah, there's a lot of very old celebrities out there. So
Well, Michelle was 39, so that was
yeah, I
bad.
know she was out of nowhere.
She
Yeah.
must have been super young in Buffy.
She was about 13
Wow.
Oh wow.
when she
yeah.
started.
Wow.
Yeah, she did Harriet the Spy at the age of 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was real young.
That is
She was on Pete
unfortunate.
and Pete. She was like 6, I think.
Yeah, she was, and then she went on to Gossip Girl, which was her late teens and then early 20s. So she's had a great career.
It makes me sad though, because like I said, he's just such a great actor, just wonderful. I was going to say something, but Kristen will have a fit, so I won't say it.
So, what was the interview you were doing, Kristen?
Oh, yesterday. So Lily Brooks O'Brien is on The Young and the Restless, and this is like hilarious, but a lot of the soap stars do Lifetime movies. So she has a Lifetime movie called The Killing Competition. And of course, it is a cheer mom death story because every cheer mom is like a murderer. But the crazy thing, I watched the movie. It's typical Lifetime, very campy. But Melissa Joan Hart, who came out of Nickelodeon as well, out of that era, she plays the crazy cheer mom, and she like just nails the camp. So it makes it enjoyable. Those movies are an hour and 25 minutes. They're breezy, they're fun, and you know what? They keep actors working. That's what I like.
Now, Kristen, I have to ask you a question because this movie theater thing, people don't go to movie theaters a lot anymore, which is unfortunate because I always loved going to the Broadway and the Empress theaters, and watching a film in a movie theater was just wonderful. But a real sign to me that people are just not going to go to movies and theaters anymore. Robert De Niro's in serial television now. That kind of surprised me.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me just because the money is there.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
The prestige is there. I mean, if you're looking to get an Emmy on your shelf, you're going to go and do a TV show. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and I think like there's still plenty, like we're having a really good box office year. Box office is up over last year.
Good.
So it hasn't reached 2019 levels, but it is the closest it has been since before the pandemic. So I think that the trend is going upward. It's just, I think, a matter of the studios delivering movies that you want to see. You don't want to see like the big blockbusters. You don't necessarily want to go to see Mission Impossible, right?
Right.
So it's about them returning things like comedies, romantic comedies, indie film. And people are really calling on indie film to make a big resurgence right now. A lot of filmmakers are saying we need to like take a step back, scale back the budgets and really go and make those gritty stories that have always, like the 70s had a resurgence, the 90s had a resurgence. It's overdue for indie film in 2025.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's in a show called Zero something.
Oh, okay.
Zero.
De
Niro is? Zero. What?
De Niro is?
I don't know. It's called Zero something. Yep. I know that.
It's De Niro that's in it, right?
Yeah, Robert
Zero
De Niro.
Day.
Zero Day. There you go.
Yeah, it's a good cast too.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Where is it?
Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
It always is.
And keeps coming out with pretty good casts. Like they get hold of some pretty good people that they're doing shows with.
Yeah, I mean, this cast alone, like Connie Britton is in it, and Angela Bassett. I mean, they can draw the A-listers because, first of all, you're going to get a paycheck that you want. And they also know if it's the Emmy type of campaign or an Oscar campaign, because they do film too, you're going to have the money behind it. They're going to support you and they're going to try and push you all the way to the end. So if prestige is what you're looking for, definitely the place to go. That's why I'm not surprised to see Robert De Niro on television.
One of the great moments in my life, Brad Blanks, one of my favorite people in the world, calls in one time about 2-3 years ago. It must have been 3 years ago now because I've been off that show for 2.5 years. But he calls in probably 3-4 years ago then thinking about it. And he goes, Tom, I hate to clog up your show and all the rest of it, but I thought it was very, very important. I have copies of the last 7 interviews I've done with Robert De Niro, and I'd like to run them all in a row if I possibly could. And all 7 together his responses were, huh? What? When? Why? He said one word in all 7 interviews. God, what a prick.
He's a tough interview.
Is he as big a jerk as it seems?
It's easier if you're a woman who's interviewing him versus a man. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He's better with women interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that happens, conversely, sometimes like it will be worse for me interviewing someone because I'm a woman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it happens all the time. You see the sexism. Thomas Jane comes to mind. Was probably one of my most difficult. I mean, he's very peculiar, but it's just one of the situations you go, okay, and it's tough because then you see them go down the line and speak to a man and they're like, blah, 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 or not being sarcastic or like, not making a face at the question.
Now, we do have to take a very quick break, but I want to ask you something, Kristen, also, because, you interview Robert De Niro, he says one word, and that's it, the entire interview. Do you think it's a good idea to start out a show running a commercial about an attorney? I think that's a good idea.
Always a good idea.
Oh, okay. We'll be right back. From Bradshaw and Bryant, Michael Bryant. What's up, Allie?
Oh, not much. Doing my usual thing of telling people they shouldn't be texting and driving. In Minnesota, you can't have your phone in your hands. You can use, hands-free, but you can't have your phone in your hand for whatever reason. And that's why they made the law the way they did, so that police officers could see a phone in your hand and you got no excuse for why you got it there.
Do people know that that's the law?
I hope so. I mean, they used to follow it, and then kind of COVID kind of made people forget. And now it's like a freewheeling world out there with cell phones.
Let's say you get pulled over because you do have a phone in your hand and you're not watching where you're going. You got to be in pretty big trouble then, I would guess.
Well, the first one's not as bad. It's the multiple ones, the problem. And once people start stacking them up, then they have a big problem. And then what we're doing in car accidents is we've started bringing motions for punitive damages, because I'm trying to use the civil law any way we can to stop this, because it needs to stop.
Whenever I'd had any problems in my life, who was that I called again? It was like an MB, something like that.
Bradshaw and Bryant.
Ladies and gentlemen, South Dakota, one of the most business-friendly states in the country, and there's no better place to settle down, take advantage of those incentives than in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. As the state's largest city with a metro population over 290,000 people, Sioux Falls has a low business costs with a high quality of life. There's no state, corporate, or personal income tax, no inheritance tax, and no limits to what your business can achieve. Sioux Falls, South Dakota was recently ranked #1 best small city for business and careers by Forbes, and the #2 best state business tax climate by the Tax Foundation, the top 5 state for e-commerce by Nexus. They got it all covered, as a matter of fact. As one of the Midwest's fastest growing cities, Sioux Falls has a robust growing job market, which is always good. No matter where you're at in your career, let's say, they have an opportunity waiting for you. Their city's tax-friendly climate and strong workforce don't go unrecognized. Forbes named Sioux Falls one of the top small cities for business and careers each of the last 15 years. In 2020, Sioux Falls also ranked as the 4th best city for young professionals. So how does South Dakota stack up against other states? Well, they're ranked 2nd in the nation for the lowest cost of doing business, the most business-friendly state, and the best business tax climate. And as South Dakota's biggest city, Sioux Falls is at the center of these benefits. Now is the perfect time to make your move to Sioux Falls. Visit SiouxFallsDevelopment.com. I'm an alligator. Kristen Bird Entertainment News brought to you by North American Banking Company. Go to nabanco.com to learn more. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. What else is happening in Hollywood? Anything good?
Well, I was just... I know we were talking about Netflix and new shows. There's a new show with Kate Hudson on Netflix that kind of follows the Jeannie Buss Lakers story, a family owning a basketball team. It's getting great reviews. It's called Running Point. And with Kate Hudson. It's a comedy, and it was created by Mindy Kaling, who always does great work when it comes to creating shows.
Yep. No, I do follow your lead and watch the things. But there was that one other. What have we been watching lately? There's a series we've been watching, Catherine. Do you remember what it is? We've only seen
the Hunting Ground.
Hunting Ground or something like that.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
Right. Yeah, it's really good though.
It is.
So is it actually about Bus, or is that just like Bus?
Loosely based on Bus. Okay. Yeah, for sure. But if anyone, I always feel like the Lakers seems to be fodder for a lot of Hollywood stories. We had Winning Time, obviously, on HBO for a couple of seasons, and now we have this. But Kate Hudson's really good at comedy. So I'm looking forward to watching this full season. I think that, she's someone who I think is extremely talented and does work that is below her level of talent, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that we kind of see a resurgence in her career.
Well, it's kind of like Catherine in podcasting and radio. It's like way beneath her talent level.
It kind of is.
Oh, wow, that was a very honest response.
Yeah, there you go. Now you see a look inside my life right there is all I have to say.
Hey, you open the door. I just walk through.
Yeah, that's true. No question about it.
Oh my God, this dog! I've been talking him off a ledge for 10 minutes, and he's still.
You give him a bath again. You just cannot be on the show when he had.
He can only bathe in the afternoon.
He has lost his mind. He's crazy. Seriously. Oh no! Then she's going to let him in to make it even worse. Oh, I like that. She opens the door, but he doesn't come in.
Well, I've thrown the squeaky toy. I was petting him. I was trying to calm him down. I brushed his ears. That usually calms him down. It's like he went out and did a hit of something. I don't even know what's happening.
Welcome to pet ownership. We took my cat to the vet yesterday for a teeth cleaning, and today he's not really talking to us. He talked to us yesterday, and then we got a report from the vet that he was like a total lover with all the vet techs, and he came home smelling like a lover because I was like, you have perfume all over you, Linus. So people were clearly snuggling him while we left him at the vet.
Yeah, we Alex and Andy used to have a cat that lived in their house that when he was displeased, what did he do? Poop in the bathtub or something?
Yep.
At least he did something easy to clean up.
No, that's true.
Yeah, it was always the bathtub specifically.
Well, that's good.
Like
I'll
I
show
could do
you.
worse, but this is a warning shot, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say 'cause sometimes cats would be like on your favorite T-shirt or something.
Oh.
My cats do not, but
when we were kids, one of the cats, it was
Yeah.
she always peed on your bed when
Yep.
we came home from vacation.
Munchy.
oh,
Yeah,
I'll show you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? What are you going to
How
do?
dare you leave me?
One thing I got to tell you, Kristen, is I guess it's for everybody, but I've been looking for new. There are so many shows out now on so many channels. It's impossible. Because it used to, back in TV days, you'd go through and find, I like to watch that and that and that and that. But now with Netflix and Hulu and Prime and
Peacock and Paramount Plus,
Right,
and
all of
Max.
them.
Yeah, there's so many things in it. You're always going, what else is new? And I'm like, have you gone through the list I've given you? You haven't.
I think almost everything's designed to binge watch now. Like
Yeah,
you're supposed to just
absolutely.
get it over with.
Yep.
And I don't really like binge watching all shows. You know, like some shows are just so fluffy that you kind of want to just get through it to see what happens.
Like, how does it end? The problem too is I enjoy binge watching, but I don't enjoy binge watching and then having to wait 2 years for the next season to come
Absolutely.
again. My problem with that is, and I know I'm not the only one with this, is that by the time it comes around, I'm like, I don't remember what happened.
Right.
You have to go back, maybe watch a couple of episodes to refresh yourself, or they do that big series, recap, and they have to figure out something better. And I do appreciate that Max is doing a longer season with The Pit, those 15 episodes, and we're getting a season 2. Hopefully they can, not make us wait so long, because that way we get more episodes, you get more bang for your buck as a viewer.
Series come out again, and then I forget about it, and then suddenly I'm like, oh shoot, there is Cobra Kai out, or Reacher just came out, or these series that come out, and then I forget about them for a while.
Yeah, well, there were a few shows. Billions.
Billions
Was one of them. I started watching. I watched a few years, and then for some strange reason, it went. You had to pay per episode, but all the episodes weren't on there, and blah, blah, and it became so hard to watch it. I just gave up on it.
Right.
I just don't even want to do it anymore.
I think Severance was about 3 years, but yeah, it's just one of the things you go, wait, how am I going to be able to catch up with all of this? And then you think like Cobra Kai, there's part 1 and part 2 of the final season. You're like, wait, I thought the series finale already happened. No. There's still about 5 more episodes.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they must knock those out pretty quick.
How many seasons of Severance are there now? 2?
2.
Yeah, I haven't even watched that yet. I've heard good things, but haven't got to it yet. So,
but just the fact that there was such a large gap, and of course, you have to understand that we had that strike that really affected Hollywood. But at the same time, you're like, I don't know if my brain remembers anything that happened in season 1.
So when was the strike? It seems like a zillion years ago.
It started May 2023.
Yeah.
Oh.
So almost 2 years ago already.
And it was
We're
about
still
6
seeing
months.
it.
It went just through September, I think. Is that correct?
of 23.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Maybe October.
still
By the
think they
time everyone
could've-
got back to work. It was, and they promised us, they're like, everything's going to be great by 2025. Surprise, it's not. So
I think they could have picked a better time to do it right after COVID wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think they should have waited.
I don't know if we should have, looking back in hindsight, I just never know if the strikes ever accomplished something. They didn't with the commercial strike in 2000, and I'm not sure we accomplished what we needed to accomplish with the writer and actor strike in 2023, because studios just go, okay, we'll just figure our way around this, and they did, and especially a lot of production by taking it overseas.
Yeah,
that's where we go.
Well, that's the thing. It's a very high demand job as well. So there's always someone willing to replace you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Non-union, using foreign unions, even if you are on a union show, there's ways around the rules.
All right, to show you what a great friend I am and how nice I am to Kristen Burt, I'm warning her that tomorrow, in studio with Andy, is going to be Meat Sauce from K-Fan. He's going to be in studio with Andy.
I didn't know this.
I talked to you yesterday about that.
You did not bring up Meat Sauce.
So,
We talked about Nick.
And in this studio with me will be Nick Swardson.
Oh.
Well, we think. He hasn't confirmed.
No, he confirmed.
Oh, he did confirm.
Last night he confirmed. Well, it is Nick, though, so confirming last night doesn't mean he confirms today. You're right.
He's waiting for a very important phone call about a very important project.
Yeah,
so
he is. That's right.
If that call comes through, he's...
How many squares will be up tomorrow?
Well, I'll stay out of here.
No, it'll be just 4. Yeah, Catherine's not on Fridays anyway.
Well, it'll be 4 plus.
So it'll be just 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same as right now. The same as right now, but Nick, we went to dinner with Nick and his fiance last night, and we had a really, really nice dinner. And the woman, when he came over to meet us, the woman in the lobby that works at the desk in the lobby, asked if she could take a picture with him, and it was very, very sweet.
Oh, that's nice.
How's he doing? Is he feeling good?
He's got a couple of things that he's dealing with. He's behaving much better than he used to, which is good.
He had that problem in Wisconsin, and he had to cancel the show here.
Yeah,
because of that. Yeah.
Yep. There's a I thought he looked healthy.
I know. I had to pinch his cheek. I was like, "What are you doing with your skin? It looks so nice." He said he's on a very, very strict vitamin regimen.
Oh, I love that. After the baby.
But I just thought I'd warn you up front with those 2 Hunyucks and then Andy and me. It's going to be a lot of weight on your shoulders.
A lot of testosterone. Is that what
a lot of
you're telling me?
testosterone to deal with. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Got you out on time again. I'm very proud of myself.
Look at you.
Now we're talking. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Kristen Bird Entertainment News brought to you by North American Banking Company. Go to nabanco.com to learn more. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. We'll be right back in a couple of minutes. Michael Bryant in studio and another special guest coming up as well right after this. Why should your business bank with North American Banking Company? Here's Austin Bartz of Bartz Lawn and Landscape and Bartz Snow Sculptures.
I started banking with North American, I think, 3.5 years ago. All the people know me by name. I know them by name. It's fun to come into the bank and actually talk to somebody you know. So I made the switch and I'm very happy. It's the best bank I've ever been at.
So why not bank where I bank? With my friends at North American Banking Company. To learn more about North American Banking Company, go to nabankco.com. That's nabankco.com, or do what I do and stop by any one of their 6 Twin Cities locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Does thinking about retirement make you uncomfortable? Sometimes the anxiety for wondering if you saved enough can be overwhelming. But what if I told you that you could ease those tensions in just 48 minutes? My guy, Josh Arnold, Mr. Money Talk, can sit down with you and get you on the right track for your financial future. Josh has navigated it all when it comes to uncertain market and economic conditions, and he'll always provide straight talk. Never sugar-coated advice on how to reach the finish line with your retirement goals. Don't let your financial worries give you an ulcer or keep you from calling Josh right now. His 48-minute no-obligation consultation could be just what you need to feel better about your future. Call Josh today at 952-925-5608. Set up your free 48-minute no-obligation consultation. That's 952-925-5608. Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC Security Investment Advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments must involve risk. You know that. All comments and opinions of Josh Arnold do not constitute investment advice. I am a paid endorser. Oh, we're rocking out, man. That's all I know. All right, let me know when Dustin's ready to go, but we will be back in a couple of minutes. Special guest Dustin Grage coming up, talking about how the world's going, things like that. That makes total sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes.
And he is due to come up shortly after 11
in
o'clock.
3 minutes, yep.
Mm-hmm. What's that smile you got on your face there, Mr. Bryant?
I'm just going to be interested in hearing what the world's like in his in his picture.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I will tell you one thing, and let me run this by you guys. I don't care if it's Republicans, Democrats, whatever. When you get national politicians together with the news media, they're all filthy as hell. It's all about money. It's about ratings. It drives me nuts. It's all of them now. Not one particular party, not one particular guy. It's all about money.
Even Jimmy Francis.
Yep. What was that?
He's the mayor of South St. Paul.
Yeah, Jimmy Francis going after
makes him corrupt.
I'm talking about the big national people. I shouldn't say it's all politicians. It's all the big politicians.
I mean, once you get high enough in office, then I mean, they say power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Well, it was interesting. One of the big stories going around on X this morning was that Elon Musk was saying that what we should do with politicians is raise their salaries so they'd be less likely to take money.
I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, there's
there's something to be said for that because, I mean, if they haven't had big raises in, I think it's something like 9 years, and you look at inflation and how much it costs to live in D.C., if they have to live in D.C., and plus, and many, many cities, it has become really expensive to live in.
Well,
I mean, we've seen that in,
Senator.
yeah, we've seen that in West Palm Beach.
Isn't it like 140 or 110?
174,000.
174.
So,
yeah, which seems like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in New York City. It's not a lot of money in West Palm Beach anymore. It's not a lot of money in most major cities.
Plus, if you're flying home every week and you're doing constituent services, there's people that like live in their office in Congress.
Right.
Yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, U.S. senators do have reimbursements for food, gas, and lodging while on official business, so there's that. But
Another thing that Mom and I noticed is a bit off brand, but it still has something to do with the value of $1. There was a commercial last night for a big automaker, won't say who it was, but they showed 4 different vehicles and how cheap they were. The cheapest one was $68,000.
I think they were all EVs. I think they were all EVs.
Oh, that was
God,
which
are
are
expensive.
more expensive.
I mean, they are, but still, cheapest being 68,000. No,
No, it's like what?
like a
These huge
Nissan Leaf.
values. It's like $74,000 for a car is not a good value.
The MSRP of a Nissan Leaf 2025 is 28,000. So, I mean,
that's a cheap car.
You can get cheap EVs if you want to.
But this was like a Dodger or something, or
Dodge
something, or I don't know, some sort of muscle car, and there was a Jeep in there, some sort of Jeep, an EV Jeep. I don't know what they all were.
Jeep.
So yeah, I mean the thing about it, and I can't even pick a crowd anymore because these politicians, and again, I'm not talking about all politicians. I kind of implied I was, but I'm not. I'm talking about the really big shots and all that. They're money grubbing pigs, every one of them. You just look at them, it's like, oh my God, it's always about this. It always comes back down to the money.
Well, they have to raise lots of money to run. And
yeah, they do.
They sure do.
They spend. I mean, they're talking where like a Senate race right now is just $5 million right off the bat.
Oh my God!
I'm surprised it's not higher.
Well, it is once you get going. I'm just talking right off the bat, and then you go into other states, it's huge.
But you also have to look at the fact that most people that get into politics now, and like the Senate and Congress and stuff, they're multimillionaires going in.
A lot of
so when they make $174,000, to them that is chicken feed anyway. So they're spending all their time working for nothing,
Well, so
in their world.
How many congressional races are there in the average midterm year?
Well, they're all of Congress is up.
All of Congress,
a percentage of the Senate is up.
So in 2024, all of Congress was
all
up.
of Congress will be up, and then the Senate is they're 6-year terms, but they're split out over like a third.
That's because we've spent $10 billion on congressional races in 2024.
Yep.
Now, when you add to that, the national news is so filthy politically, it is unbelievable.
The newest one is Jake Tapper.
Yeah, no, he lied, and he knew he was lying.
Yeah, they've got him on national news saying that Joe Biden did not have any cognitive impairment, and now he's writing a book about how
his cognitive impairment,
how it was covered up.
It's
like, how can you were part of the cover up?
Yeah, if anyone would know, it'd be him, right?
Well, it's
Let's see, I did the math here. So 535 Congress people, $10 billion. That's about $18.7 million per race.
Yep.
That's
There's
insane.
$50 million races
a lot
out there.
of money.
Yep.
I mean,
Well, the presidential race by itself, $5.5 billion.
Yep.
$5.5 billion.
Yep.
$5.5 billion.
That is just repulsive.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, though. 2020 was even higher, $7.7 billion. But in 2016, it was only 3.1, and it's only been going up since then. So it's only ever since 2020, all of a sudden. I mean, not that 3.1 billion isn't a lot of money, but it's increased exponentially since 2020.
But it bought Musk a lot, so
it sure did.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly did. There's no question about that.
Unbelievable.
It's interesting.
And
to
that's
think
another
we
one I
could,
don't understand.
I think term limits need to happen. Maybe that would help.
I don't know.
I don't like term limits because it institutionalizes the committee people. It makes the committee people stronger that are behind the senators or behind the congressmen.
But aren't
And
I think we should have age limits.
I like that people are allowed to hire or to elect their own officials locally. I don't like the idea of me controlling what North Carolina does or what other states do.
We have Dustin on the line.
Dustin Grage, ladies and gentlemen. Dustin, are you on TV a lot? Hope you can't hear me.
Yeah, he doesn't have
He doesn't have his headphones on yet.
Should be able to hear us.
Put your headphones on, you pill. No, I don't think he can hear us.
You should.
I think I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Oh, now you can hear us. Okay, because you were kind of staring at me. I was talking to you there for a while. It's like you were looking at me like.
sometimes it takes a minute for everything to click in.
Well, you might have been bored just by what I was saying. That might have something to do with it. Dustin, we were just talking in advance about elections and how much they cost, the billions and billions of dollars, and it's just. It's not like it used to. Well, and was it ever like that? Even back when George Washington was picked out of the crowd, I understand that. But, I mean, was it all... When did it get so incredibly expensive based on... Now, you have to remember, in 1950, the average American worker made $2,900 a year. So $5,000 back then was a lot of money. A couple of years' salary almost, right? So is there any comparison today? Because we're talking billions. Michael, would you say the billions of dollars for...
Andy said that.
Oh, Andy did. How?
Yeah.
$5 billion for who?
$5.5 billion for the presidential race last year.
$5.5 billion, Dustin. What can we do about that?
I mean, a great question. Nationally, it's a little bit different than what it is here in Minnesota. I know we're probably touch on Minnesota a little bit because we have limits here. It's not like in Texas, if I'm a billionaire and I want to donate $1 million to a state rep candidate, I mean, pretty much can. It's unlimited contributions. We're kind of an interesting state where we actually have caps. So, like, a state rep here is like capped at 1,000. A governor's capped at 5,200, whatever that number is. So we're a little bit different here, but I mean, there's a lot that needs to honestly change on the national level, in my opinion. But also a lot needs to change here in Minnesota because we're almost too far in the other direction on this because it just simply opens up the PACs to run amok. In this case, I'm sure a lot of people on this show are familiar with Alliance for Better Minnesota, which is basically the Rockefeller family, Rockefeller Oil. That's Alita Rockefeller and Mark Dayton's ex-wife, who's also a billionaire. They put together this organization, which why have they won for the last 15 years almost, gone undefeated? It's not because Ken Martin's a great state chair for the Democrats, which he's a fine state chair. He's competent. He's boring. He's not going to cause a lot of drama. He's focused on winning. But it's because they have these billionaires that are pumping money into our elections, into the PACs, and in particular putting it into a ground game that they've been putting together for the last decade. And yeah, it's tough to beat that out when we're outspent, 10-1 in Minnesota, roughly, when it comes to governor down to the state rep seats. So there's a lot that needs to change, honestly. What that answer is, honestly, I'm not 100% sure on what that should be. But some type of middle ground has to be found somewhere. Otherwise, then, grassroots candidates can't honestly compete. We saw it in CD1, which I was fine with either of those candidates. I think both were great, but I personally support Jeremy Munson in that race. I thought he was the stronger conservative during that primary, but he was dramatically outspent because of a lot of outside groups just were able to throw in money, even though he was pretty much the endorsed candidate. I think he barely missed out on that. But even still, because we have this caucus system, he was able to be very competitive. I think it came within 1 percentage point. And I like Finstead too, so it's totally fine that Finstead won as well. But a lot needs to change. Otherwise, there's never going to be a grassroots candidate that really comes and rises to these congressional seats unless they check a box with the establishment. And that goes for our primaries as well as just winning statewide. Money makes a huge difference in politics. And the good news, at least, I think, organically, especially when you look at X now that Elon's purchased that platform, I mean, the dramatic shift in what we're able to do as Republicans going against Democrats, despite our dramatic underspending compared to them, we're able to actually break through a lot of the noise now. These PACs aren't able to be as influential as they used to. We're able to actually break through some of that, and I've heard it from news anchors from, WCCO and Fox, like in my DMs, like, the reason I got back on Twitter is because of your tweets on walls and just being interested by those, and honestly, even using those in some news stories. I hear directly from them. They use those stories in that oppo on Fox News. Even CNN with Scott Jennings used a lot of those talking points because they heard it on X, and we didn't have to pay a dime for that. We just had to have good information, good content, put it out there, and let the public consume it. And now we're able to fight back a little bit in that regard organically.
Which is how it should be. It's interesting. This is kind of off topic a little bit, but not that much. I was sent this by many, many people. Apparently, Tim Walz doesn't know who Michelle Tafoya is. Did you see that email that he sent her?
Okay, that's incredible, because isn't this Coach Walz, Coach Football Walz, and he doesn't know who Michelle Tafoya is? Has he ever watched Sunday Night Football?
He said, "Did you see this, Michael?"
No, I didn't.
Tim Walz sent Michelle Tafoya, "Michelle, you're a great supporter of mine, and I really appreciate it. You go out there fighting for us. And there's nobody in my life I've ever met that's further right than Michelle Tafoya." It's like, whoa.
That doesn't sound like a personal email. That sounds like a group email that went out.
Well, it still was wrong.
Well, I agree, but that's just a list. They purchased lists.
Yeah.
And
right.
You
shouldn't have been on the list.
Dustin's work you do with media. I think you understand you purchase lists. There's people on the list. I mean, I get a bunch of Republican texts.
Do you really?
I get emails from Trump all the time asking for dough.
I've never gotten any of those. Not once.
That's because you've never made a political contribution. Once you make a political contribution,
well, and
you're
sometimes
done.
they like to troll you. A lot of people just like to add me to Ilhan Omar's email list, even though he unsubscribed. They're like,
exactly
this will be good. Let's throw dust on all the Democrat lists.
No, in the old days, they used to put in fake names in there so they knew who was stealing their list. Sell it. And so you'd put 4 or 5 in there so you found out who was doing that to you. I don't know in today's world if that's even possible anymore to keep track of where lists go. I don't know. So, but you used to have to buy, campaigns used to have to spend a lot of money buying lists.
No, that's a good point, because that happens a lot in our caucus system in particular. And Dave Hahn, before he exited for our new chair here coming in, that was a big thing where you just had to seed these lists with fake names and fake emails, just make a couple dozen of them, because groups would just go run for governor, get access to the list, not actually be competitive, and then their nonprofits would take the list and go run with them and fundraise off them.
Right.
So it's a major problem that is finally kind of getting some addressing, but that happens a lot.
And then you give to one party person, you get, something will happen. You'll give to a person, and that'll create more lists that you're on.
Yeah, no question about it. I just there are many, many different levels of this. I don't like the fact that the news media is so involved in politics now that they lie constantly, and it's on both sides. These media people, I don't care. I've been in radio since the day I was born, for God's sake, but television and radio and even podcasting probably should not get involved in our elections in the United States of America, because there's way too much money. We used as an example, and it has nothing to do with the political party that he belongs to or whatever, but Jake Tapper lied for years and said that, everything's fine and everything's wonderful. But as soon as there was money to be made by writing a book, all of a sudden now the ex-president is badly damaged and always has been.
It'll be interesting to see if he takes any accountability.
I hope so. I mean, shouldn't be lying about that. Look, I didn't vote in this election. I just, first of all, I didn't get a ballot sent to me, so I couldn't vote. But it didn't bother me to not vote in this election because, I don't know, it's gotten to be too much money involved and too much anger and very mean people involved, and I don't really care for that.
They used to shoot each other.
Well, that was way back. That was way back.
Make duels great again.
Yeah. Match select pistols.
And part of the press thing was that there's been time periods where it's really about access. There's certain people that'll talk to the press, and other people don't. They get mad, they don't talk to them, and then they get mad because the story doesn't include them. It's like you have to have that ongoing contact, and it gets out of balance. And I don't know. But you're right. There is a certain level of press that wants to be the story themselves, and
they do.
Moments and big deals.
Dustin, just to go through your background, could you talk a little bit about what you're up to and why you do it?
So I came up kind of in Republican politics from the grassroots level. I started out as a Ron Paul delegate for the state party in 2012. And, eventually made my way to here, working for the state party, working for different statewide campaigns, state rep, Senate, congressional. Have been doing it ever since. Now I'm just kind of doing it on the side. And honestly, I've been dabbling a little bit more in the quote unquote news side. Obviously, I favor Republicans in that regard and how I kind of report and I dig up information. I'm probably not going to go find too much bad, dirty laundry on Republicans to put it out there. I'm pretty exclusively mean to Democrats, and that's fine. I'm pretty open about it. What always annoys me is when people aren't open about it, and they're very clearly they paint themselves as, "Oh, I'm an independent investigative journalist," and I conquer both sides equally when they don't at all, and it's not even close. And I love those charts where it shows journalists based on their political party. And there's like 15% are Republican, a good 50% are the next highest is independent, but way above that is Democrat. They just openly identify as, I only cover Democrats. And there's unfortunately a big monopoly there that has to be overcome a little bit. And it has been kind of shaken up, in particular with this election, kind of with these podcast networks where more independent voices just can kind of organically come up, and then you don't have to deal with these kind of pay to play situations. Like if you're in a state like Florida or Texas, like talk about expensive media buying networks tens of millions of dollars to even just know your name and bump up a couple points in the name recognition polls. It's a little bit easier out here in Minnesota. We have a little bit easier of a media market, but it's expensive. So it's nice that some of these organic networks can come out and, you can kind of play that a little bit. Now, Walz and Kamala Harris ended up thinking it's still pay to play. So they're still paying podcasts tens of thousands of dollars just to show up for, X amount of minutes on
Where's my dough?
Yeah, we'll do it.
No.
Give us a call.
I was like, how do I get that deal? How do I start a podcast and charge a candidate tens of thousands of dollars to come on?
Do you think you shouldn't give money to a podcast for advertising there, Dustin?
I mean,
what was that?
I'm wondering if you shouldn't give money for advertising on podcasts.
Well, advertising, I think, is fine. But you also have to kind of disclose that they're just kind of paying for appearances, which was a little wild. But they burned all that money on that, and I think Trump's staff ended up coming out to be like an eighth or a ninth of the staff spending for Kamala and Tim. And it's insane how much money that campaign spent astroturfing when not a single primary vote was cast in their favor. They just kind of installed them, and we're just expecting yes, this is going to turn out just fine. Not a single person voted for them, and there's going to be no issues astroturfing this. And they were shocked to find out that it didn't work out too well.
That was part of being as late as there was and what they had for time.
Yeah, they didn't. What was her campaign, like 6 months long or something?
No, it wasn't even. It wasn't even that.
Not a good idea.
But I never had any idea how powerful Rogan was. She agreed. She decided not to go on. I mean, I'm not sure I would have if I had been an advisor. I would have told her, if you go on, it's got to be live. There's no way I'd let them edit.
She couldn't do that.
And then that would have been the only deal. I would have flown to Texas. I would have done that, but it's got to be live.
She is not a good speaker, and she was not good on her feet.
You don't think she could do it?
No, I don't think she could.
I disagree, but I think she would have been fine.
Do you think Joe Rogan could do it?
Would Joe Rogan do it live? My guess would be no.
Yeah.
But what he was able to do, because of the terms that you got to come to DC, you got to do it here. He was able to look like, well, we offered it and you didn't do it. I would have said, I'll do it. I'll come to Texas, but it's got to be live. You can't edit it. Because that would have concerned me more, the editing.
Does he do live shows or is it all edited?
It's all edited.
It's all edited. He's not very good, actually. One of the biggest pricks I've ever met in my life, by the way. Joe Rogan is not a nice person.
He has a huge podcast.
Well, he does, but Joe's life is built on the fact that he's a little tiny guy who thinks he's a tough guy.
Well, he did fight a chimp once, so.
He did fight a chimp. Now, let me ask you guys another question. This is sticking in my mind going all the way back to when I was, I guess, 8 years old. Because the first time I ever got in politics, had paid any attention to it whatsoever, was the JFK election. And you know why I was so involved in that? Because he was Catholic.
Your mom liked him.
My mother loved him, not because he was a Democrat or a Republican. It was because he was a Catholic. And by the way, I carried that in the back of my head all the way through the Biden administration because he's Catholic too. So I was like, I wonder how Mom's doing with that whole thing. She's been gone for a number of years now, but that stuff all enters into it too, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
Religion?
And I mean, Biden was Catholic, but also a lot of people forget this when you talk to go to any Knights of Columbus meeting. They're all very, very unshy to say that JD Vance is Catholic, and that does play.
Oh, is he? See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I didn't vote.
So it was a nice addition adding there for Trump to bring that factor into it.
Could you bring Catholicism? Because it's huge to Catholics. I mean, I'm not that religious a guy. Haven't been since I got out of St. Anne's in 8th grade, but but it still does stick in the back of your head. It does for me anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Because my mother is watching me from heaven, and so I got to behave, that kind of deal. I just wish, and I'm going. You know what? Do you mind if we take a very quick break?
Yeah.
I want to get this ended so we can just carry on a nice flow. So we'll take a break. Be right back in a couple of minutes right after this. Dustin, Mike, Bryant. By the way, you both behaved very well. So I'm proud of both of you.
Right. Excellent work.
We'll be right back.
We want fur to fly.
Well, Jude's doing that already. So.
Yeah, Jude's doing that already.
All right.
For Brad, John, Bryant, Michael Bryant. Michael, what's up?
Dealing with another case where a person gave a statement to the adjuster because they thought the person was really friendly.
Is that a good idea?
Well, the problem is they know the law when they call you up. And while you're trying to be fair and you're trying to get help, the reality is there are questions you get asked that the way you answer them make a big difference. And people put themselves in trouble. And when they aren't in trouble, they didn't do anything wrong, but suddenly the adjuster's got a statement that can blow up their case completely.
What has caused people to be so untrustworthy, I guess is the best way I could put it? They take advantage.
Well, insurance companies have hired adjusters whose job it is to deal with unrepresented people. So they're supposed to kind of lure them in, call them every day, see how they're doing. And people are like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. Where the reality is they've kind of adjusted to their problem that they've got going on. So it's not that they're completely better, but the way they say it gets to be a problem. And that's why having somebody who can explain your rights, represent you, make sure that you understand the law before you give a statement can make a big difference in your case.
Michael Bryant, Bradshaw and Bryant. Ladies and gentlemen, MyPill is excited to announce that they're having their first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98, kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 30% on the brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of one Mike has worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's size. They're made right here in the USA. Get the 2025 6-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. The initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And the best-selling standard My Pillow, just $14.98. To take advantage of the first ever mega sale, go to mypillow.com, use promo code TOM, or call 800-516-5146. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now every order ships absolutely free. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Bryant in studio, Catherine, Andy, Dustin Grage. Are you at your house right now, or you have a studio? What do you do?
I am currently here just in my house with my daughter's bee artwork from a little kitchen.
Her bee artwork going.
Until the studio is ready, of course. But we're working on that part.
Are you working on the studio?
We're working on the studio next.
I had nothing wrong with that. Catherine just had this studio redone while I was out of town, and she did it's really nice.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
It did. It turned out really nice.
How much does that all get? I mean, we're joking around about it and all the rest of it, but where you're from, what religion you are, that stuff all does matter in elections, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so amazing that looking back at that, and then look, I loved growing up Catholic. All the rest of them, not the most religious guy in the world now, and it's kind of interesting. But I think part of that, and the reason I even brought that up in the first place, is because I just wish that these media people at the national level would stop lying and saying they're going to do one thing and they do the exact opposite they say they're going to do. I really think that's disgusting. You should not lie to your viewers.
I think they're suffering the consequences, but they don't seem to care.
They're getting fired by that.
But they don't seem to care.
This is exactly why Trump won the election and why he won it in 2016. It's this manifestation of angry voters that have just been upset with this process. And it finally blew its top off. Whether in some cases, some voters who voted for Trump probably won't vote for him again or another candidate like him. But they wanted to send a message. And this is clearly what's happening now because of that.
Well, we started another...
sorry.
Well,
go ahead,
he can't run again. Unless you mean like a Senate or something.
Like that type of a candidate.
He's way too old to be a... Come on. But he's like 80. Well, he will be 80, won't he?
The problem is I don't think there's anybody that can be Trump. I think I think Vance is going to try. Whether he tries, but he's got a different side to him that isn't Trump. So I don't think there's any, because Trump hasn't allowed anybody to be him because he kind of stamps on anybody that would come up other than who we got running the country right now.
No, I can't agree with that. Yeah, and we can talk about Ron DeSantis type of guy where that's kind of that was the heir apparent in that type of venue, but ran against him, obviously stomped him in that regard. But now they're kind of trying, right now, Byron Daniels is kind of being pushed in Florida, but he's still polling well behind Casey DeSantis, the wife of Ron, even though Trump is endorsing Byron. So, to your point, Mike, no one can beat Trump. I don't even think Trump's kids can beat Trump at this point. So how does that manifest? How does that change over the next 4 years? How does that develop? Because I don't think there ever will be another one like him. But the next, what the future of politics looks like after that, it's very much up in the air. I don't think anyone can predict what's going to happen next.
No.
Part of it is the question whether he'll make it through all 4 years. It's because we could end up with Vance as president potentially. I don't know that that'll happen for sure, but that's a potential change that could come.
At this point, I feel like presidents have some sort of immortality potion that we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
People were speculating the same thing about his first term and Biden's term, and I mean, all went through.
Going back to the why Trump won this time. So I guess yesterday, Tim Walz went on some sort of, I don't know, some rant about how everybody that voted for Trump is a Nazi again.
Oh, God.
Is that the winning strategy for the Democratic Party, is just to keep pounding and pounding on the same issues that everybody doesn't want to hear about anymore? Do you think that this is going to finally turn everybody
it doesn't help
the right way?
That's for sure. I will say that event in particular was like a nurses union type event. So it was very this is a group of Democrats. You're talking to a group of Democrats. Vice versa, if you're in an executive board meeting for Wright County GOP, Tom Emmer's going to talk to you a little bit differently than he would normal public. But whenever Walz gets caught up in this stuff, this is how Rocks and Cows happened. He was talking to a group of Democrats, but there was a tracker in the room. Same case in this situation. And then, it's going to blow up on you. But that's ultimately, I think, why Walz had so much success over the last 20 years. Even if some of this oppo is kind of picked up, Minnesota media markets, at least, they kind of just hide things when you're a Democrat. Yeah. If you're a Republican, it will be out there. If Scott Jensen messes up, you will know about it. It's just a guarantee between that money and the media market here. But Tim found out a little bit the hard way that the moment he got out of Minnesota media markets and went national, people actually took this oppo that's been sitting there for almost 20 years and were like, okay, now we're going to actually go into this. And to the point, even some stuff we didn't know about, we didn't know that he wasn't actually in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. We thought he was there. We just kind of openly accepted that, but because there was actually national precedents in here, people with a lot more knowledge on digging up some of this Oppo were able to go to local newspapers in Nebraska and figure that out, and that hurt him quite a bit. And the culture of memes and what kind of came from that debate, and ultimately pushed up JD Vance almost double digits in favorability, and brought Tim Walz down a couple points. That made a major role in the election. Probably flipped a swing state somewhere in the Midwest. So
do you think it hurt him in Minnesota?
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely did. Just him being on the ticket in Minnesota actually hurt him, according to pretty much any internal congressional poll, whether you look at Staubers or Emmers or even the public ones at KSTP. I think Kamala was up double digits. She was up 10.5 points. The moment Tim Walz entered the race, a couple weeks later, they started running polls again. And then all of a sudden the lead was cut down to 5 points, almost in half. And it ended up finishing at 4 points by the end of it.
Is it arrogance that they wouldn't have vetted him better?
Some of it. There's a lot of speculation on that. There's so many conspiracy theories on this. It was intentional. The Obamas knew that this Oppo was out there and they wanted him to fail. There's so many conspiracy theories. I legitimately just think that they knew about most, if not all of it. Some of it not quite, because I've talked to a couple of the larger Kamala donors that didn't know some of this stuff, and I won't mention their names, but they loved Kamala, but they hated Tim, and they let me know that in DMs. But they didn't know about a couple of it, but a lot of it they did. But ultimately, they just looked at, here's Tim Walz and his Oppo against him, but here's Trump with so much more going against him, and they just truly expected Trump gets away with it, so Walz can get away with it, and just kind of rubbed it off and just saw, here's a likable Midwest dad that we can market, and that's going to help us in these states. And that really just was the reasoning, not looking into the conspiracy theories, but just what is kind of factually out there. But a couple of that stuff did throw them for a loop, like the Tiananmen Square massacre situation. That was a big big out of left field, caught them off guard. So there's a couple of those things, but ultimately, a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of just looking at the balance of things and saying Tim's not as bad as Trump on some of this, so we fine. And just
you also had the choices that you were looking at. A couple of the choices she didn't like because they wanted to be president, not vice president.
Right.
And whether or not she would have gone with Pete, that would add an extra factor to it. So he was kind of the best of the group in what she had to choose from.
Well, I would point out that the reason he probably failed is because he doesn't like me. So I think that's really why it came apart. I just got a text message from a listener saying, this is very disappointing. They're being nice to one another. Get Stretch in there. He'd be ripping everybody to shreds.
That wouldn't work.
That would not work.
So Dustin has, forgive me if I'm misspeaking, but from what I remember reading on X, you believe that the political situation in Minnesota is changing fast.
Yeah, and in terms of the voters, it's actually kind of favoring Democrats a little bit. Migration, just simply put, there's a lot of people moving to red states. Well, it's probably not Democrats moving to red states. It's probably Republicans.
True.
But those independents are shifting more our way, so that's kind of keeping a little bit of a balance there. But we are losing voters, Republicans are, and they're gaining Democrats. If you look at one of the mass migration states into Minnesota, it's California.
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't
really.
Those aren't it's kind of weird to me. I'm you want to move from your warm California, move to cold California.
Yeah.
A whole moving decision, but I'm guessing they're not Republicans moving to cold what they hate. So, so we are in a little bit of a disadvantage there. Republicans are, but ultimately the biggest factor really is just how crazy some of the Democrats have gone left over this past couple sessions. We had seen long, multi-decade sitting state representatives in southern Minnesota literally go on interviews and say, I hope the Republicans win back the state house.
Really?
A sitting DFL representative saying that. And I'm spacing on the name. he retired Southern Minnesota. It's now a Republican-held seat. He kind of saw the writing on the wall, like his seat was going to flip, so he edged out there. But he's friends with a couple more of the moderate Republicans, and put it out there that, hey, I voted against a lot of this stuff, and I think some of it's way too crazy. And I believe in balanced government, and I hope the Republicans win this one branch of government back, so we balance things out again. And a lot of independent voters saw that too. So that's a very real reality for them. But the other part, the more obvious part, I think, at least when it comes to my expertise coming into it, is this organic media we've been talking about. I mean, I'm small fry in terms of national. Like, I think I've got 70,000 followers on Twitter now at this point. But I punched a little bit ahead of my follower count just simply due to some of the people who follow me. And if I put out something good, it picks up. I regularly will have a post that'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10 million views on a post.
Whoa!
If it's good content that's 100% factual and true, and it'll get picked up. That never happened before. I mean, you couldn't even get like a friendly interview on a Republican-owned outlet in this state for the longest time. That has changed. It has completely changed due to Tim Walz running on national scale.
Wait. Who were the friendly Republicans? My mind just went a little.
I know we're kind of laughing at that, but like, at least this is what the Democrats often say. Like, well, Glenn Taylor is a Republican. He was a state senator. He owns the Star Tribune. Well, the Star Tribune's still leftist.
Yes,
it's pretty clear. Yeah. Like WCCO, like it's owned by a Republican. I believe that's Hubbard, if I'm correct. He's one of our bigger donors. Wow, they're a lot more friendlier with us. Like they still are pretty center, I think. They're pretty fair in their reporting. They had some of the best fraud investigation stuff, and even in some cases, like Democrats were like, "Oh no, that's just partisan hackery," and they said it in the fraud committee. The DHS new commissioner, because the old one backed out because she knew that all this fraud was going to get unfolded. So the new interim had to come in and go, that report's false. Well, WCCO ran KTSP. That's what it was. KTSP, not WCCO. Ended up doing a follow-up on the story, revisited at the Times, and was like, actually, the story was 100% true and factual. And, that was about as good as it could have possibly gone for us in Minnesota in terms of media market favorability and, openness and honesty. That's about as good as it could possibly get. But unless you were watching that channel on that network, you never saw it. But because now, like, I can go and take that, post it on Twitter, and it gets 1 million views. Now CNN's going to pick up on it. I can DM Scott Jennings and go, hey, you should take a look at this. I can DM the Federalist with Molly Hemingway and actually expand this a little bit and pick up some national media in the process. And this is just something they've been not used to. We used to just get ratioed on social media, and now we're doing it the other way around. It's completely flipped. Now we're still losing in some media markets, like traditional media markets, but it's more balanced now, and we have more opportunity to actually leverage into the national thing, national scale of things, and it's truly balanced the playing field a little bit. Even though we're going to be outspent, we've always been outspent and in unfavorable markets, and we've always consistently, pretty much I think only twice this century, since 2000, have actually had a trifecta DFL. Even when we're at that massive disadvantage, we've at least had the House or the Senate. We've been fairly balanced, even with that stuff working against us. So now we have this working for us in many cases. It's going to balance out and ultimately give Republicans a chance to win statewide, especially with Ken Martin now moving to DC at the national level.
Well, there's going to be there's going to be the Senate opening. We'll see whether or not there's a governor opening. I think Walz will probably run again, but I don't know that for sure. And then the odds are pretty good we're going to lose a congressman at some point. With Texas and California growing, they got to find one someplace.
Oh, yeah.
And if this goes down to 7, I assume they'll combine the North, is my guess, is the way they'll do it. But this is going to be that those will all make for big changes. So I think the big issue for Republicans has been their candidates. They've lost out on races because their candidates have been kind of subpar. And they haven't. I mean, I wouldn't say there's a person that's lost that I'm like, oh wow, it's really bad that would have been nice for Minnesota if that person would have won. So, and that's partisan, I'll admit, but I don't know. I mean, is there somebody you think, boy, I really wish they were running things?
I mean, I would love Tom Emmer to run statewide again with his network and some of his knowledge, but he won't, obviously, because I mean, and quite honestly, like, Tom has a real legitimate shot at being Speaker of the House one day.
He does. If Trump lets him. I mean, that's the interesting thing, because he should have been, when he had that shot, he should be there where Johnson is, and Trump stopped him. And Tom and I've known Tom forever. I text with Tom pretty regularly, and sometimes I'm like, Tom, how do you do what you do? But I like him.
No, Dustin, you muted yourself.
Oh, you're muted. Oh, you can't hear us because he's muted.
Oh,
there we
go.
go.
It looks like I muted myself.
That was
brilliant.
brilliant.
This faction of the people, they kind of just hated Tom, and they pushed him off. We made pretty good progress there. Now it's not Mike Johnson getting invited to the Super Bowl with the president; it's Tom Emmer.
Yep.
That script has thankfully flipped quite a bit, and I think if the opportunity were to come up again, I mean, the right members of Congress, in this case, I'll pick on Thomas Massey. Everyone voted with Johnson. All they needed was 2 votes to flip it. Well, who did the right of the right vote with in leadership? Thomas Massey voted for Tom Emmer in that, and a lot of people were shocked by it. But when you explain the reasoning, like, well, Tom is actually the only one voting with the conservatives on these amendments, then people kind of saw, oh, maybe he is the best one of the leadership that the base would actually like. And so he's got a real shot there. But statewide, I love some of these prospective candidates that
The
are
new ones.
probably going to run. I think we're going to have a good slate. Of course, this is all bearing on how, like, the Democrats kind of land. Like, we're all waiting on Walz to say he's going to run for governor, so these other ones can decide to land where they're going to be, because they're not going to jump ahead and go like, I'm going to run for governor without knowing how Walz is going to run. And then they're just going to fall into place after that. But once we know if Tim's going to run for governor or not, it's going to start falling together very quickly.
Yeah, he's announced he's not. Oh, go ahead.
Do you think the next election, the fraud that's rampant in Minnesota, is going to hurt Walz running again?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it hurt last time. I mean, Jensen wasn't the. So, like, I have a mixed bag on Jensen. I think he's very talented. I think he's very knowledgeable. He's kind of got my problem where I talk before I think. But I'm not going to run for public office, so I've got that going for me. So,
the thing I should mention to everybody here, and this is very, very true, is that, for 37 years, I had the highest rated morning show in America. We were killing everybody. Then I got fired 2.5 years ago. I don't ever hear from any of those people anymore. They were constantly on the phone to me every day when I had a 40 share. Matter of fact, I reached out to Tom Emmer a few months ago, never even called me back. They're not the best people in the world to start with. And I'm talking about all politicians.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the podcast, we had a bunch of politicians on. They were running, and then they won, and then never heard from them again.
Tim Pawlenty and Norm Coleman still stay in touch with me, but I was really friends with them before they even got elected to big time office. So, but that's the one thing about politicians: the impression that I get, unless I can help you, I'm worthless.
What have you done for me lately?
They got to raise money.
But I have gotten one thing that's really, really nice is my text messages that I receive come on my watch. So while you guys were talking, you couldn't hear it, but I got all these messages. People are very, very impressed that the two of you look at politics completely differently, but there was no screaming, yelling, no being a prick to one another.
No, I'm
people
disappointed.
People loved it, that you could have a decent conversation and try to make this a better state instead of it has to be my way or the highway. People really liked this interview. I'm telling you, they loved it, which is great to hear. So tip of the cap to both of you, right?
I'm as hack as it gets. So, but we are all friends of the Wrong About Everything podcast, so we've been trained.
Oh, that's right. You're wrong about everything too. Yeah. So
wrong.
No,
about
I
everything.
mean the podcast.
That's the name of the podcast. But we are all wrong because we all disagree on all of it.
Well, I lip dropped for the first time when I was 5 years old for Valentine Verna. So I've been doing campaigns for a long time.
But don't you think people would like it if this is the way people on opposite sides of the aisle would communicate?
No,
there was a time when there was. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
And I mean, those guys used to go out for beers together.
Yep.
And what's happened nationally is they don't intermingle. They like hate each other.
Correct.
And it's crazy because they don't know each other, and that's unfortunate. I mean, but it wasn't crazy. Tip O'Neill used to go out to dinner with Reagan sometimes,
all the time,
and that was just part of what they did, and they disagreed, but they could get along, and that's gone away. It's been replaced with this kind of hatred that makes no sense.
Yeah.
People are I think it still exists. It's just very private. It's very private. Like, I know like a couple, like some of my better friends in politics are actually like hardcore Minneapolis socialists.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime, like, it's always kind of fun working with some of them because like they'll hate some of the moderate Democrats, and I don't want the moderate Democrats to run and win. So I'm like, heck yeah, I'll throw some out with them. Give me all the dirt. And then vice versa. So sometimes there's some mutual ground there. We get to hang out a little bit and, throw some dirt at each other of our enemies on the other side of the aisle. We can use each other a little bit. Yeah. And that happened with Walz a little bit because some of those thought he was too moderate in some cases. They're happy to provide some information, and I was happy to accept it. So
we used to in Iowa get together, the different campaigns together, and complain about our candidates, both Republicans and Democrats. That was just part of what we did. But it exists on some levels. But I think there's there's an extra part, and there's this extra kind of I can't be seen with that person because it looks like I'm going to the other side or doing something else that is unfortunate.
Being seen working with other people is terrible.
I do an executive order. I'm going to do an executive order where every week you have to pick 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats in Congress, and they're all going to play Jackbox for 2 hours on Twitch. And that's how we're going to mend the parties.
Or a cage match.
Or they'll just hate each other even more after that. I said Jackbox, not Mario Kart, for a reason.
I will tell you, honest to God, I know it's time to go, but Dustin, you're always welcome back. And Michael, you two did a great job. Maybe people actually learned something of how it should work instead of blah, 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 screaming and yelling at each other and all that. I enjoyed this conversation immensely. I thought it was wonderful, except you remind me of 2 guys who hate me. But other than that, it's okay. You get some of these pills, but it was a great pleasure to hear. And I think we should get this group together again as time moves forward. If you got time, Dustin, Michael comes in every week. I'd love to hear more politics handled this way, because it was kind of like that when I was a kid. I remember that was a long time ago now, but it was just such a pleasure to hear everybody speak to each other like human beings instead of screaming at one another. It was very nice. Yeah. So we got to go to break. You guys got to go.
Nice to meet you, Dustin.
Nice to meet you guys. We'll see you around.
Okay, we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Why should your business bank with North American Banking Company? Here's Austin Bartz of Bartz Lawn and Landscape and Bartz Snow Sculptures.
I started banking with North American, I think, 3.5 years ago. All the people know me by name. I know them by name. It's fun to come into the bank and actually talk to somebody you know. So I made the switch and I'm very happy. It's the best bank I've ever been at.
So why not bank where I bank? With my friends at North American Banking Company. To learn more about North American Banking Company, go to nabankco.com. That's nabankco.com, or do what I do and stop by any one of their 6 Twin Cities locations. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Does thinking about retirement make you uncomfortable? Sometimes the anxiety for wondering if you saved enough can be overwhelming. But what if I told you that you could ease those tensions in just 48 minutes? My guy, Josh Arnold, Mr. Money Talk, can sit down with you and get you on the right track for your financial future. Josh has navigated it all when it comes to uncertain market and economic conditions, and he'll always provide straight talk. Never sugar-coated advice on how to reach the finish line with your retirement goals. Don't let your financial worries give you an ulcer or keep you from calling Josh right now. His 48-minute no-obligation consultation could be just what you need to feel better about your future. Call Josh today at 952-925-5608. Set up your free 48-minute no-obligation consultation. That's 952-925-5608. Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC Security Investment Advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments must involve risk. You know that. All comments and opinions of Josh Arnold's do not constitute investment advice. I am a paid endorser.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I will tell you this, and Andy, you're of a different generation than Mom and me, but wouldn't you watch a lot more political news and debates and all the rest of it if that's the way it was handled?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely less, there was no doom and gloom, which is a big one.
No name calling.
Doom and gloom is like the main thing that I think people are sick of. Just everything sucks, everyone sucks,
right.
Right. And I mean, X is definitely, super political on both sides, but the thing that people need to get over on X is the name calling.
I know.
I mean, if somebody posts something that you don't need to call them a
instantly
bitch.
It's fascist.
You don't need to. You don't need to.
Libtards,
you don't need to call. You can disagree respectfully, because if we start, with the Democrats, with the Nazis and the fascists and the screeching about everybody being a Nazi, that turned a lot of people off.
It did.
If you're constantly swearing and calling people, terrible names on, comments, it just turns you into the same sort of person.
Yep.
So I just think that everybody could be more respectful.
Well,
and it would be helpful.
Michael Bryant is a hardline Democrat. Dustin Grage is a hardline Republican. And yet it was a very pleasant conversation. They both did a great job. I actually enjoyed, for the first time in decades, listening to political talk, because they knew what they were talking about. They both made their points. I didn't think it wasn't like one handed the other one their ass. It wasn't like that at all.
Yeah, Dustin was good. I didn't know what to expect. And
very pleasant.
People like that, he's like a big Republican on X. He could have come on and been like, calling Democrats, you know.
Well, I've been following him for a long time, and one of the reasons why I asked him to be on was because of he's like normal.
He is normal. I agree.
For social media.
That's
I agree. He is normal.
I mean,
people,
because you need to talk to everybody on all sides of, everything, so that you get an actual perspective of what's going on. Because in Minnesota, it has been one-sided for so long.
No question. And mean as hell.
And very mean and very closed. And it's just a little elite group of these, very, very filthy rich politicians that have been running this state and running the candidates for so long. And I don't think it's really been beneficial to children that can't read, they can't write, they can't do math, the fraud and all the stuff that's been going on right underneath our noses, because we haven't known, because we don't have real investigative journalists who will go up against the regime. And that isn't good for anybody.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Mike talked about how there's no decent Republicans in Minnesota. And I kind of agree, because it's like, okay, you're a Republican politician. Why would you run in Minnesota where it's going to be an uphill battle the entire time? Even if you win, you're going to have no power, because the Democrats are just running rampant in the state. If I was a Republican politician, I'd go run somewhere that's more Republican friendly.
Well, and you're up against Rockefeller money too. That's really hard.
Minnesota's probably like the second or maybe third last place I would ever run as a Republican.
Well, I'll say it again. I was very, very proud of both of them. Michael Bryant, again, hardline Democrat, and Dustin, hardline Republican, and they had a nice, wonderful conversation. They didn't agree on everything, but they handled it wonderfully. I'm very, very happy we did the show, and I would ask everybody to tell your friends to listen to this episode, because this is how politics is supposed to sound. It's how it was back when people had some decency. Now everybody thinks they're a tough guy. So it was just a wonderful surprise.
I'm telling you, Congress Jackbox. They could play Quiplash together.
There you go.
I think it would go well.
All right, that is going to do it. Andy, good job. And Nana, thank you. That was a magnificent way to get the good
You're the one who got him on, basically.
Yep, it was all because of me.
It was all because of Catherine. That's exactly right. All right, well, tomorrow, by the way, Nick Swartzen in studio here, and Meat Sauce in studio with Andy in Minneapolis. So it should be.
Have him text me or something, because or is he just going to show up?
I think he's just going to.
I guess he knows where we are, because we're across the street. So.
Oh, he knows where we are. Yeah. No. If you want, I will ask him to send you a text of what time he's going to get in and everything.
Yeah, it might not be a bad idea.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow, Andrew.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
saying reminds me of this was before. Every time I hear the same reminds me how you talking